You are not alone. So you said it is hot, hot down there today, huh?
Very much so. It hit 97. It said on my phone not that long ago.
Did you grow
So
up in that area?
no, I grew up in New Jersey.
Okay. Okay. I grew up in Port Charlotte, Florida.
Okay.
No,
So
I'm not at
a
8.
little south of there.
Hang on here.
And here's Emily, and now the whole book club is here. Hello, Tony. You got your flock. You got your flock of
Well, one flockette anyway.
a flockette. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, how did you end up in Florida? What's inspiring your writing? Is this what you do forever? Like do you have, is this your set job?
No. Well, when people ask me how I ended up in Florida or what brought me to Florida, I always tell them it was an 82 Buick. But anyway, that's just a bartending joke. Um, I'm actually I'm 64 years old, and the writing thing is relatively new for me. It's just been 3 or 4 years into it. I have a background as a musician early in my life. When I moved to Florida as a young man in my mid 20s, I was still working with music, but I transitioned into a career in social work, which I stayed in for about 18 or 19 years. I was a case manager with the Central Florida Coalition for the Homeless for most of that time. And then I kind of got burnt out with social work, and I wanted to do something fun. I was looking to do something fun part time, so I went to bartending school. And when I finished with that, I ended up with a job with Hilton in one of their hotels near the airport, and I it was really very good. So I decided, instead of just being a burned out social worker that was bartending part time, I would just go full time bartending, and I've been doing that for the last 18 years.
Oh my gosh.
Um,
That.
yeah.
I love that so much. And are you still in the same place, or have you moved on to
Yeah.
different? Oh my gosh.
No, I've been 18 years for it's the Embassy Suites at the Orlando Airport. And it's actually, there's some inspiration in some of my writing comes from having been a bartender. And um, that's why it's the Good Vibe Lounge is the center of things in my book. But yeah, I've been there. It'll be 20 years in about a year and a half. And at that point, I might make a decision on retiring or going part time, or and doing more of the writing. But right now, I'm still holding it down there.
My gosh. Do you ever get inspired by the people that you see coming through the hotel? Do you ever see anybody and you're like, oh man, that person's a character. They need to be in my book.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I've threatened a few people with that. Be careful what you say to me, because you might end up the bad guy in one of my next books. But no, I've been inspired. I mean, there's the series of books that I've written. A lot of it's set in two different eras. So the era that from when I lived in New Jersey as a young person is obviously based on that. But all the modern tale is really from my experience working at a bar with people, and knowing that business, and the communication that goes on back and forth in that situation. So that's been the root of what some of my writing has been. And I'm finding, even as I'm thinking about new projects, that I'm still doing a lot of character profile is based on working at the hotel.
If that's what's working for you,
Yeah.
that's not necessarily a bad thing. So you said, okay, so I know that your stories, that your Good Vibes Lounge, I know that it starts in the 80s, correct? With your characters.
It starts in the 70s. Actually, it starts in late 1970s. 1977 to be exact is where the part of the story is, and that's where it begins in the first book, which is the characters involved. It's the senior year. Well, the main character, protagonist, is the senior year in high school, and it's based around a group of kids who are performing arts geeks, musicians and actors and singers and everything else. They get together and they have their own little clique, and the stories kind of work from there. The main character, all of them are inspired by and based on real people and actual events from my senior year in high school. Let me just say it that way.
Okay. Wow. So you kind of self-insert a little bit, kind of based off of going on through your
Yeah.
life.
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, the way I explain the book best is that it's a journey that it's inspired by actual people and events. Um, but as you move through the story into the 80s and the second book, and even the modern story itself, it's reimagined fiction. It's the what if scenario. It all stems from kind of my going through a period of time where I really started evaluating friendships and relationships that I had throughout my life, and looked back at my roots, in New Jersey in high school. And I started thinking about these people that I was very close to that I no longer had any connection with, and some of whom that I had lost. And I started to think about, what would have happened if certain situations would have occurred. And I started out as kind of a stream of conscious that I was just writing, 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 writing. It was just, I look back at it, it was 12 pages of, a conversation with myself about people. And somewhere along the line, I don't know, it just inspired me to write a play. This was kind of during the pandemic when we were on furlough and, had run out of Netflix series to watch and things like that. Um, so, I started to, I wrote a play, and I had done that before. I'd written a couple of plays before that, were produced at an amateur level. And I was real comfortable writing like that. I was comfortable writing dialogue, 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 things like that. And I sent it to a friend of mine who was an actress and had also been an editor at HBJ, Harko Bracevanovich, years ago. And she said, she says, it's great. She said, why don't you try to novelize it? Why don't you try to take this story and, turn it into a novel? And I had never been successful before. I had probably started about a half a dozen books and got to the first chapter, and I had the ending. It was the middle part that always challenged me. So you know, I started doing it, and I had plenty of time on my hands. I just figured I would be patient and get it done. And the next thing I know, I had written the sequel to like Game of Thrones because it was huge. It was this big, large, huge bunch of words, and
And so you had
and
to scale
so
that back a little bit.
what's that?
Scale that back a little bit, huh?
Yeah, yeah, I had to scale it back a little bit. I mean, it was a lot. And so again, I sent it to my friend Beth, who said, you just turn it into a series or a trilogy or, something. And I found some breaking points. And then as I started to work with it, I realized there was more that I wanted to, there's more that I wanted to develop about our lives going forward from high school. And most of that became fictional. The different relationships and things that didn't happen. And again, the what if scenario. So when it all was said and done, I had enough material to write a trilogy. I got a big thing about threes, I guess. I've been married 3 times. I have 3 grandchildren. I usually have 3 cats and 3 dogs, not at the moment. So I figured I better stay with that and do 3 books. So, the first 2 are out and I'm working on the third one right now.
I saw you've got the third. Do you have a release date yet for the third one?
Not a specific release date. I'm hoping for sometime in August. Been working at a little bit of a slower pace on it. But you know, I've learned a lot from writing the first two as far as, you know, editing and format and style and everything else. So I'm taking my time with this one, and I want to finish off the trilogy as well as I can.
Well, that makes sense because I
Mhm.
feel that you can have such a good series, and then sometimes an author like I just read a series, and I almost feel bad about it because it was a YA series that was wildly popular in the early 2000s, and I just finished the third book, and the way that the author ended it, I was like, why? Like
Mhm.
it just for me just took away so much of this whole story. So you can have such a good series, and then you end it on such like a note that's so harsh sometimes. So it's good that you're taking your time with it. And I'm just gonna throw this out there. My birthday is August 21st, so if you're looking for a really good release date, that's
Okay.
it.
Okay. I'm gonna actually now target that. You know, that the suggestion's been made. But you know, really, I'll tell you, I think part of the problem with my, you know, moving forward into writing a novel was patience with myself, you know, and patience with the story. And I knew what I wanted to do when I started, but you know, I've always been pretty impatient when it came to seeing a finished product. So I really did have to train myself to take my time, and I was assisted by the COVID-19 dilemma because I had plenty of time on my hands, and it was during that year that I got the first, well, the monstrosity that was the first two books. But luckily, I was able to scale it back and take the next year or so, because I released the first one a year ago. So it took me about 2 years to get to where I wanted to get with the initial book, and satisfied with it. And still, there's a part of me that's still, you know, I'd like to go back and do a second edition and take some of the things I've learned, and you know, maybe re-edit a few things. But
I hear that a lot. I feel like from some of the authors that I've interviewed is that it was hard for them to be confident enough, number one, to release their novel, and number two, to be okay with where it was when they released it. And as they look back from that growth, that it's tough. And then we've got Tony down here saying she's gonna. I will be nagging him about the third book and done.
well, you know, the best part of being in this author thing has been connecting with other independent authors along the way. And you know, I want to mention Tony's in here right now, and she's become a very good friend of mine and a mentor. Even though she's probably half my age, she's a mentor in many ways. But I was very stuck on a number of things and confidence about what I was doing with my book. And one night, I was getting into a habit. You don't see too many people sitting at the bar anymore reading an actual paperback book. You know, you see them on tablets and phones and stuff. But whenever I saw, during this process, whenever I saw somebody sitting at my bar that was reading a book, I said, "Hey, can I ask you a question? How many pages is that book?" And they would show me and look, and I would look at the print and everything, and then they would look at me funny and order another gin and tonic. Um, but one night there was a young woman and her husband in the bar. Her author name is Cassandra Blair. I'll give her a plug. But she really changed things for me because she was reading a book. And when I explained to her why I was asking her, because I liked the size of her book and the number of pages, and I looked at it and I go, "Ooh, that's like more pages than mine. So this is cool." But anyway, I got to know her. We had a conversation at the bar, and she explained to me that she herself had self-published. She wrote a book called The Right Place, and we started talking, and at that moment in time, I was so confused about how to publish, how to self publish. There were so many different, you know, businesses coming at me about publishing. And some of it sounded way too good to be true, all too good to be true. And Cassie was the first one who really told me, hey, this is how you do it. And I'm going to connect you up with a person here and a person there. And she really gave me some serious confidence about moving forward. And again, she's the first actual independent author that I had met. And we kept an email connection going. And then once I got into it, there were a couple of other authors. There's been a number of them, but Tony's been one of them who she writes wonderful romance novels, but she also is specializes in the vampire romances and the supernatural. If you like True Blood and Vampire Diaries, Supernatural, it's all of that kind of genre. So, but she's been very helpful to me again also, and helped with the confidence to move forward, bounced ideas off of her, and she's been a great advanced reader for me. And we've even played with some subtle references in each other's novels to each other's characters. We're doing these little crossovers. We're somehow we're fitting the setting and some of the characters in to each other's novels, and that's been fun. They've been like just a paragraph or a couple of sentences, and we're having fun doing that. And I think that's going to happen with each of our next novels. There's going to be a reference crossover.
I love that idea. That is, and that's not something that you can do if you're not self-publishing. You don't have the luxury of probably, being able to do those kinds of things. So that is so much fun.
Right. I contacted James Patterson. He didn't want to have anything to do with Drew and Yo-Yo. So just it didn't work out. But
He doesn't
but
know what he's missing out on.
Tony is great, and I met a bunch of other independent authors that have really helped me along the way. One other one I'll mention is R.K. Byers, who he's written probably about 10 different books that are really amazing. But he also does these great 1 minute book reviews on TikTok that I just love, of classic books. So he's been really helpful too, and also the networking part of getting to know other authors. And the more of the other authors that I've met, I think the stronger I've become as a writer, because just learning that way has been just a fantastic experience. But the best part of this experience, really.
That is so cool though, being able to connect like that. And that's part of what our club has set out to do to begin with, was the attempt to connect authors in different spaces like Discord, where we have the author chats and we try to highlight different authors, because we just don't know where this platform's going. We don't know what's happening right
Right.
now. Right now, we're riding this wave as happily as we can,
Yeah.
and trying to connect with as many as we can. But Emily, who's on here, she has amazingly designed our website for us, where there is an indie author index. So if you want to send her your information,
I
reach out.
will.
She can add you. It's totally free to add you to the index. That way, again, we can continue to try to get that support going, and get your name out there. And what is your target audience, for those that don't know, for your novels? Tell us a little bit about them.
Well, I think that, because the so much of the books have to do with the 70s and 80s, it probably targets people, that are my age or a little bit younger. Um, and I think that there's a lot of references to the pop culture of the time, the music, especially. Music was such a big part of, well, it's always a part of people's lives, but it was a big part of our lives back then. And it was such the late 70s, 1977. If you ever have time, Google a list of the top hits of 1977, and you just see the diversity of music that was out there. It was the beginning of, Billy Joel's career. Aerosmith was popular, Queen. I could go on and on. So a lot of those references, Fleetwood Mac, Chicago, these are all musical groups that are referenced somewhere in the book by the characters. And so I think it targets probably people in that audience. I think I've had a lot of male readers that, but I do think that a lot of my story probably appeals more to women because of the romantic aspects of it. I haven't done too much with any science fiction or anything in there, but I think that's probably the target audience at this point.
Okay, that's awesome. And what are you hoping that readers will connect with or pull from your book as they close that final chapter and they're sitting with your novel? What are you hoping that they will feel or get from your writing?
Well, I hope that they see that the aspects of our life obviously traverse from the lighter adolescent moments that we have, all the way to the challenges that some of the darker moments that we have to deal with in order to to move through life, and the relationships that we put together when we're young. And I think that's one of the things that's been important to me, is to kind of look at the longevity of friendship, and the longevity of the connections that you make when you're young, uh, to see if they can survive some of those challenges. And I know that was part of my inspiration to write this, is that this is something that I hadn't done. It's something that I hadn't achieved. And in reflection back, going reflecting back on my life, something I really did want to achieve. Um, and that I have regrets about. So I'm hoping that when people are finished, they have hope, and they see the connection, and the um, that friendship, and love play in that in the realm of their life.
Are you one that has those longer connections from people way back when? No.
No,
Is that where
and
you?
that, yes, that's the inspiration for it. When I look at some of the friendships that I developed back then, and some of the people that meant so much to me, over the years, I had reconnected with some of them on Facebook and things like that, but not all of them. And some of them unfortunately are gone, um, and that made me sad. And it's great to have that reconnection now that we do have through social media. We're spread out all over the country, but I see a lot of those folks. I mean, I have people. It's sometimes mesmerizing me. There are people that I went to high school with that married each other and are still married. I mean, wow. And I'm pretty fascinated by that. I'm pretty fascinated by the people who still live in my hometown. But even people who are spread far and wide, are still connected and have been connected for years. And this came up for me, like I said, about 4 years ago. I was dealing with some medical issues that were scary at the time, and I guess it started my mind thinking about a lot of this. And so that was my inspiration to reach out. And again, a lot of the book is based on true things that happened, but there is a lot of fictitious what if scenarios that I tried to work through.
Sounds a little bittersweet. Tony said in another comment earlier, people will be crying.
Well, there are definitely some serious moments of sadness, heartbreak. I mean, my life, has been an like anybody else's. You have your series of joy, and happiness, and your series of heartbreak and disappointment, mistakes, impulsive decisions that you regret. It's all in the in these books, and some of them are mine. But there's a lot, but a lot of them, are based on mine, but my own decisions. And like I said, I tried to do some reimagined outcomes, and the center of the story is definitely a romance between the two main characters, and it is a sad story, but it does have hope that springs from it at the end. I
It sounds
hope.
like you're really touching on feelings that I don't think there's a single person out there who doesn't have those what ifs or what could have beens, or in any situation in life. And for me, I'm a cusper, as they call them, and my two best friends still live down in Port Charlotte. And we've been friends since we were 11, and we've had a group of us though that were very well, very tight when we were younger. And outside of the three of us, everybody else has kind of just, you know, gone their own little ways. And you made a good point about how Facebook has reconnected you with some of your friends or some of the people that you've known from your past, where for me, I didn't have to wait as long for my generation. And then for my children's generation, they didn't have to wait at all. They have
Right, it was right there. Yeah.
right there constantly. So it'll be interesting just from a life perspective to see how those kinds of things change for people um, as we go along. But I think for anybody now, um, even for me who didn't have to wait long to reconnect to the people that were outside of my two best friends, there's still the what ifs, and there's still the where are those people, and I saw
Hmm.
somebody, a friend of mine in the news that I was in band with in Miami, who got into some big trouble. He made national news, and I was like, oh my gosh, like lost touch with him, and that's where he ended up. My goodness, this was just a year ago. It was shocking. um so yeah, I think it's gonna be a good, I'm gonna have to read your books, I think.
Well, one of the things that's been, I think, a happy outcome from this for me is in reconnecting with people, in seeing that so many of them, that especially in the performing arts area, that pursued that, when we were kids, that we all looked at each other and said, "Oh, they're so talented. They're the best singer. They're the best trumpet player." How many of them followed through and made their lives around it? And have gone on to be great musicians, and had great accomplishment in that area, and as actors, actresses, and others like me who kind of let that drift away. I mean, that was another big piece for me. When I was an adolescent into my early 20s, probably before I really moved to Florida, when I was still living in New Jersey, I really was into the arts in a big way. I love to act, and I love to play the drums and play the piano. And over the years, as real life started to set in, a lot of that started to drift away. And that was another one of my regrets. So, in reconnecting, and I even reconnecting, one of the characters in the book is based on my old band director, who is still kicking. And it was really nice to, see that he was still teaching kids and everything else. Um, so writing was a different form of art, obviously, but it kind of re-energized my artistic ambitions from back then, because I kind of let those all go.
It sounds like it was kind of a healing process for.
It was a therapeutic thing. I mean, I've never made any, I've been totally transparent about it. This was a part of, therapy for me, trying to, move through the depression and anxiety about where my life was and what I hadn't done, and, getting through all that. And writing was, part of that. My daughter, who has just become a therapist herself, during this period of time was studying and was very inspirational to me in, pursuing it, and kept me going at it even when I felt like I just enough, I'm not doing a good job with this. But she kept me going with it, and I'm very proud of her. And she got to be one of the good. Her character's one of the good guys in the book.
Oh,
So
and I bet she's very proud of you too. I bet she's very proud of you too, and I bet she's excited to be a good guy in the book.
she is, she is. The whole modern part of the story, the narrative, is based around a big party at the bar that we're throwing for her graduating with her master's degree, which is pretty close to what happened, except we didn't throw a party for her at the bar.
Oh,
But what if we did?
what if we did? Emily created a poll at the top of this page. It's a little blue and white box. Um, Emily is one of my moderators, and the poll asks, "Will you buy the books?" So anybody that's on here, go click on that poll. Go click yes to buy the books because everybody should
If
support our indie authors. And on ordering a physical copy, do you sell anywhere other than on Amazon?
No, right now it's just exclusively Amazon.
Okay, okay, because we've heard rumor that Amazon takes a lot of fees from their authors, and so that's something I always want to try
Well,
to ask before purchasing.
they do, but to be really honest, this is not a profit center for me. So, I tried to price the books, to be modest as far as that goes, and I've given a number of them away to, people who I thought would enjoy them. So I'm not in it, at this point, probably never, as a profit thing. Like I said, it's an artistic endeavor for me. So, yes, it's true. Amazon does do that. And I know some people out there that I've met, some of the independent authors I've met with this networking that I've done, are really kind of dependent on this for part of their income, if not all of their income. And I don't know how they do it, to be really honest, because it's so competitive as far as the number of independent authors out there, published by, and also ones that are published by the big houses, that there's a lot for people to choose from out there. So um, doing a lot of people do Kindle Unlimited, and there's almost no profit involved in that. But again, um, I don't know. I don't know how the men and women that do that. And sometimes I look at the prices they have up there, and I wonder, is that realistic? Are people going to go that direction? But they're doing it because they need to earn money. So, but for me, that isn't the case. I still working out there at the bar. So, I don't mind. I don't mind if people buy it on Amazon, and I don't make too much money on it.
What would be some advice for any other authors or aspiring authors out there that might be watching? What would you give them if you were looking back on yourself pre sitting down to do this? What would you tell yourself?
Well, definitely what we were talking about before on patience. I think that so many of the authors I've met are they have so many ideas in their head, and they're running through them, and am I going to do it this way, do it that way, what about this story? And I think it's important to try to give yourself enough time to develop your characters and develop where your story's going to go. um, I mean, I have to admit that sometimes my story has gone where the typing has taken me, and sometimes it's been a surprise for me. It's like, oh, this is where I'm going. But then, to kind of sit back, and I've on the first book, I've edited it. I don't know how many dozens of times before I got it right, before I got it comfortable with being able to publish it. And like I said, learned a lot. So I would say patience, taking the time to really look at what you have and not rush through it. I really do. When I mentioned a few minutes ago about some of the folks that are out there that are kind of, I don't know how I would put it. They're doing like assembly line novels, where they're just rushing in and putting a story together and putting a series together, and they're going to have one out in January and March and June. And, I'm like, why? And a lot of them are dependent on this for income. But then you have to look at it and you wonder about the quality of what you're doing. And I just feel like time equals quality for an independent author, especially if you're a rookie like me. I mean, I still consider myself a rookie in this. I've been helped by a lot of great people who know what they're doing, and some professionals as well, and some great software that I hooked up with along the way that's really helped me with grammar and sentence structure and things that I have not been fantastic with throughout my life. But I've learned quite a lot, and I think also along with that is read as many other independent authors as you can, because I think that will help you with the confidence to move forward and understand the way other people are putting their stuff together.
Absolutely. Having that community, it sounds like, has been really substantial for you.
Yes, very much so. I can't say enough about that. I think there's probably about, I'm going to say 10 to 12 authors that I feel close with right now, although I have not met a single one of them. Uh,
No,
other,
me see, they're my girls, and I have yet to meet them in person, so I get
uh, I
it.
mean, here we are talking about the connections from, 40 something years ago that I wasn't able to. But today, in today's world with this technology, we can have good, like Tony and I are good friends, but I have yet to have a vocal conversation with her or meet her in person, but we know each other very, very well. And oh, Cassandra Blair, I did meet her that at the bar, but other than that, I haven't met any of the other authors that I feel very close to, and I feel that are my circle of friends and my support. And when I've been feeling like a little bit of a lull, writer's block, and just kind of gotten lackadaisical, or feeling frustrated because of the whole some of the Amazon stuff, some of the TikTok stuff too, getting through some of that Facebook, all these different promotional things. Some of them are just so well versed in it, and it's been helpful to have that community for sure.
Awesome. Oh, Maddie. Yeah, it looks like Maddie and Emily are gonna meet up here soon. See, I love that. I love the connections that everybody is making through here. To me, that's just absolutely fantastic. So, what do you have coming up in the future? Anything outside of this trilogy? Do you have anything that you're thinking of?
Well, there's a few actually, and this has only been recent. Other than kind of playing around with some of the stuff, Tony and I have talked about maybe even doing something collaboratively. We might do something, and we've talked about that.
I think
And
I'm so excited for you on that. I think that is so much fun.
yeah, it really is. Well, like I said, we were already got the little crossovers going on and the little references to each other's characters and settings, but we've actually been talking about some story ideas, and there's also been a couple of offshoot novellas suggested to me from my current books. There are so many characters, especially in the first book, and they go so far and then they kind of drift off. But there are some other stories that I could put together from some of those characters for like a novella. Um, and I also have another one in the back of my mind that's more on the dystopian genre. I've always enjoyed reading that genre, and I might take a stab at it, but it might be kind of in the sarcastic dystopian genre.
Dystopian. Now you've got me. Niecy, look at Niecy's face. She's in it.
Yeah. I'm, more and more every day, I just look at the what's going on in the country today with the political systems and everything else, and I think about, we're not that far from going this way. And, but if I did it, I don't think I would take a very serious tone towards it. I think I'd have to put a little bit of New Jersey sarcasm into it.
I think that's fantastic. Hey, Niecy, Emily, do you ladies have any questions for Kaycee? Oh, Emily just disappeared. There you are.
I was curious how long it took to write the first book.
Mm. Um, it took over 2 years. I'd say 2.5 years before I would say it was written. I would say that, I wrote the whole thing, and it probably took me 2.5 to 3 years to really complete that. So I actually had the trilogy in the skeleton of the trilogy done. But then when I went back just and worked directly on the first book and really focused on that, because I was very, I was kind of hyped up about how many words it was going to be and everything else. And at some point, I just released myself from that and just said, write it, just write it and see what happens. And I'm not disappointed in it, in that. So I would say that, that one, it took me a couple of years, a little over 2 years to put it out there.
So you said you had the whole trilogy, kind of the skeleton of it. Do you work by an outline or do you just kind of go with it?
Well, no, I do have an outline. Actually, I have this great Excel spreadsheet where I have all the chapters, and because my storyline, it bounces back and forth between the two timelines. I really wanted to organize it to make sure that, I wasn't going, three chapters in the '70s and then one back. So I did a lot of balancing act with it, and it was very helpful. And I could actually write the chapters, um, you know, as individual chapters and then start plugging them in different places to make sure I had that pivot between 21st century and '70s and then moving forward into the '80s same way. So yeah, I have worked with the outline of it. Once I was able to pull apart that skeleton and get it down to the bones, I was able to do that. And yeah, I'm definitely working off an outline.
You mentioned some software. What kind of software do you use?
Um, well, AutoCrit, which it's actually developed as I've used it over the past 2 years. It's gotten better and better in terms of, not just spell checking, but checking for redundancy and word choice, and too many adverbs, and just everything. It's been really terrific. They recently added an AI feature, which I really try not to use, but it does help to look at a paragraph to see if there's a different way to do it. But that and Grammarly, and they've actually worked together pretty well. Grammarly's got a much more powerful, I think, thesaurus
Yeah,
feature
I love
than
Grammarly.
yeah, than AutoCrit does. And right, my pattern has been to write it, then write a chapter and throw it in AutoCrit, and that it really take my time going through all of the categories in that, and then doing one final well, I shouldn't say one final shot, one little run through with Grammarly, because Grammarly picks up some of the thesaurus of the redundancies that AutoCrit doesn't. And then I Microsoft Word as well. I let it do its thing. But Grammarly and AutoCrit recently have kind of started to work off of each other. You can link them up. So that's kind of made the process a little slim down the process for me a little bit.
For real, yeah.
So for Nisi, tell us maybe a little bit of, so we're talking about your dystopian novel and a little bit of the the sarcasm that you would bring into it, but what direction would you possibly think to go with it? What would make it new for you?
Um, well, you know what, it's kind of based off of a Chris Rock uh, joke that I saw in one of his recent concerts, where
Okay.
he said, "Have you noticed that every commercial on television now is there's a mixed race family?" And I was thinking, what if we did a thing where, we rewarded society for going in this direction, and what kind of havoc that would have on the whole racial social structure in this country. And it probably piss off some people, and you know piss off other people. And I just thought, maybe this would go in the direction of a dystopian kind of society. So I don't know, I'm still working on it.
I would read it.
It's
Yeah.
I
very
mean,
funny.
considering I'm a product of, interracial parents, so yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like that's I just feel like sometimes I felt like that's the direction that our society has to go if we're ever going to get past some of the bigotry and the prejudices that we have to start embracing that a lot more. And I've had that feeling for a long, long time, when it was definitely not something you saw on television all the time. So
Absolutely. Well, that sounds like a fantastic concept. It's got to be a little frightening to step out with that idea, but given how society is, like you said, it may piss off some people,
yeah.
but I also feel like those are the types of books that really grip people. That
Mhm.
when you have the right audience that reads those types of books, that's, man, those are
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Those are amazing. Well, great. I cannot wait to get a hold of your books, and I'm definitely going to be downloading them tonight from Amazon.
Well,
But I
great.
definitely do plan on adding them to my indie author shelf as well, because I love having the physical books for the authors that I chat with,
Oh, yeah.
try to get to know. And
I, I do too. And, I've gotten spoiled like a lot of people have by having the Kindle and all that stuff. And it's easier sometimes on my eyes to read them. But, as I've gotten into this with again, the community of independent authors that I've connected with, I've made it a point to buy their books, if for no other reason than to have them on the shelf and to be supportive of them, because I really think that's it's important. And some of their covers are just really cool. They're wasted on a Kindle that you
art.
put it away after you're done with it.
That's where we got
So
our start, was with covers. That's how we got the Cover Girls book club, was talking about
oh
how we really enjoyed. And so I want to put that out there for anybody that's listening to this live right now, that this is not an that this is an all-inclusive book club. Just because it's called the Cover Girls book club doesn't mean that you have to be female to join. Anybody can join. It just started from a joke. If you notice our tagline, it says "We like them hard."
yeah, yeah, that was a little tad intimidating, but at
because
64. But
because we like the hardcover books is where that was going. We were talking about how we Tony's laughing. We were talking about how much we really enjoy a really cool looking cover of a book, and we were talking about our first read was Damsel. Yes, yep. Good covers are always going to draw somebody in. And so we were talking, our first book that we read was Damsel by Evelyn Sky, and we were looking at that cover and how beautiful that was. And we were like, wow, man. And then the joke turned into how we like hardcover books, and you kind of, we were all on a live one day, and that's how the book club formed. So.
well, and I'll tell you something. When my book first dropped on Amazon, it was wonderful and I was excited and everything, but nothing gave me more of a thrill than to get this in my hand like
Yes, no,
this.
that,
And I also want to mention too, the cover on this book here, my granddaughter did the actual artwork that's on there. I told her what I wanted. I said I need this kind of a silhouette with the two, but the girl has to be a little taller than the boy because I wanted to be realistic. and she was able to put this together. She's really talented, and even though she's just 17 and she's not quite ready to read this book yet, um, uh, but I think that I love doing that. And on my third book, I have a young lady, same in the same age group, who's done some really great photography and based on around the beach here in Florida, and I want to use that on my cover for the last one because so much of the story takes place on the Jersey Shore. So I need to give homage to the beauty of the beach.
Sure. And yeah, and you were sitting in Melbourne Beach on one of the videos that I spent a lot of time. My grandfather lived in Melbourne when I was
Ah,
growing up, so I spent a lot of time in Melbourne Beach. So
yeah.
yeah, I'm really jealous. I want
That was a very nice day. It wasn't 97 degrees like it was today. That was a beautiful, balmy, like
to.
83. So,
Man, Hurricane Charlie blew me to Nebraska, and I tell you what, I still have a lot of sand in my flip flops. It's really hard over here. I miss home, but it's just this is where I am now. So it's one of those what could have been things if I hadn't, you know, if I hadn't been here and was able to, at the time that I was. So yeah, going right along with your theme. Man, well, it's been really great chatting with you, Kaycee, and I really hope that you continue to grow and be successful. I know you said that you're not out to necessarily make this your main source of income, but I do wish you so much success. And Tony, thank you so much. It was really great, and maybe you and I can as well.
you should have her. She's got a lot more work than I have out there that she can talk about. She's got quite a nice little library put together.
Go to the covergirlsbookclub.com, join the book club. Kaycee, go follow Kaycee so we can help get his name out there and get his book shared. I sound like this is
Well,
something we're reading.
thank you so much for inviting me and having me on here. This is the first time I've done anything like this, and it's just it's very exciting for me. So thank you.
I love it.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Kaycee, so much. And hopefully, as you get closer to your August 21st publish date,
I'm writing it down. I'm gonna look and see if that works. I may use that as an inspiration to do that.
as you
for
get
you.
closer to that, we should chat again when that book releases, so that we can maybe catch up and help garner a little bit of excitement around that release. Sound good?
Sounds great, and I will let you know for sure that we're going to do that.
All right. You know where to find me.
Thank you so much.
All right, everybody.
That's-
Have a good night.
Bye.
Thank you.